Good morning and welcome to this event with Qlife. Remember, we record this event, so if you miss something during Thomas's presentation or questions in general, you can find the event on our webpage later today or tomorrow at HC Andersen Capital.dk. With me today, I have the CEO, Thomas Wartho from Qlife Holding, and to all the participants, you're more than welcome to post your questions during the presentation, and I will forward them to Thomas after he presented his slides. So today's topic is, of course, the collaboration deal that Thomas and Qlife Holding signed last week into a final agreement with Hybro Biotechnologies. But other questions are more than welcome as well. So by that said, welcome, Thomas, and welcome to today's event.
Thank you for that, Klaus, and hello to everyone. Qlife has developed the EcoHealth platform, a platform that makes it possible to test for various blood biomarkers in your home, either by a healthcare professional or by yourself. And that sounds maybe easy to do that, but actually there is no system today that makes it possible to do that, or to be more precise, there is no system which is approved for doing that. There are lots of systems, so-called point-of-care systems, that are approved to be run by a professional person, but there's no system approved for being operated in your home by yourself. We expect EcoHealth to be the first one, and thereby facilitating that blood data can be sent from your home and into a healthcare facility for follow-ups. Now, for the next 20 minutes, I will focus on the following points. First, a little bit about our background and where we are today. Then I will focus on home hospital. And then, as Klaus mentioned, we have recently entered an agreement with a Chinese company called Hybro, and I will talk a little bit about that. And in relation to that agreement, I will talk about the value of the agreement and the milestones under it. And finally, our plan and a summary. You can ask, why is it important to be able to send blood data from your home by yourself? Well, I think, as we all more or less realizing, resources are limited and public healthcare in particular is expensive to run. We all know that. And people are at the same time living longer lives, which of course is very good, but it also means that there are and will be more diseases to be treated. Therefore, the ability to monitor your blood data more frequently is important, and trend yourself so that you can see it coming, so to speak, the diseases. It is actually the monitoring that gives you the information. Which way is it going with your health? Something that no one really is capable of doing today because there are no tools to do that. So we have to find new ways to keep the productivity in the healthcare sector up with the same or maybe even less amount of personnel. And we must give people the ability and the tools to be able to participate actively in keeping themselves healthy. You know, otherwise the burden on healthcare system will become tremendous. I guess we're all seeing that a bit. And Qlife vision has always been to allow people access to the data that means the most to them, their personal blood data, which gives you an exact status of your health at any given time. I guess, you know, prevention is probably the word, because in reality, we want people to react many years in advance of really becoming sick or get some condition. And to be able to do that, people need the tools to understand exactly how close you are to becoming sick. Now, in regard to Qlife and our EcoHealth platform, you know, I think it's fair to say that we have certainly worked very hard to do that since our inception or since our IPO in March of 2020. I think we have come a long way, although I guess you can say our share price doesn't really reflect that at this time. And of course, I think there are reasons for that. First and foremost, I would like to start out saying, I think we have an amazing technology platform and a product that is built over the past few years, but actually goes 10 to 15 years back in terms of the know-how that we have accumulated. In my mind, our product platform is second to none. Now, one thing that we have seen in this period is, unfortunately, that the regulatory requirements has become really tough. We have changed from the IVDB to the IVDR, which means that, you know, in the old days, we could self-certify, put products on the market. Now we have to send in a relatively big technical file, and then we have to wait until the authorities decide to approve the product. And that is a very heavy product. It takes a long time, and you are a little bit, how should I put it, in the pocket of the authorities, because you have to wait until they will approve it. Another important thing is, of course, that the pandemic, we learned a lot under it. I think Qlife as a company and the product itself obtained a lot of robustness. And maybe most importantly, you know, people were taught about the importance of biomarkers and what role they can play in your life. So that was a very good thing. But what we actually is seeing is that the market for blood data, although Qlife has really tried hard to put our platform into the consumer's home, into, you know, layman person's home, we are seeing that there's probably a little bit longer time before we reach that point. So far, the market for our product is still in the professional market, essentially finding new ways to treat people and how to cut costs. Now, we need new solution, as I mentioned, for increasing productivity to be able to treat more patients. So we need to develop models how to do that. And one model is what we call hospital at home, where a percentage of patients that are not critically or acute ill can be hospitalized in their home, or, you know, as opposed to being in the hospital. One of the key barriers for this model is basically to be able to send blood data from your home. Typically, there are 3, 4, 5 blood data points that are really critically important to be able to monitor over time in order to follow the patient. And if you have to get those and, you know, bring the patient into the hospital anyhow, you might as well just keep the patients, you know, and they will occupy a bed. So alternatively, with EcoHealth, the blood data can be taken in the home by the patient themselves, or by a healthcare personnel that can go to the home, or even by the family that can help, and then it can be done that way around. This is a much cheaper model that hospitals all over the world today is testing out to find out if that works. Every year in Denmark, as an example, one market that we obviously is very well familiar with and that we are testing on together with the hospital, is that there are 48,000 people hospitalized with pneumonia. Many of these people already have one or several chronic conditions and therefore is in risk of being seriously ill from pneumonia. At the same time, these people are not necessarily better treated in the hospitals, since they often just need to be monitored with these blood values, you know, in order to secure that the numbers doesn't increase, especially their infection numbers. And hence, you know, they would then get more seriously sick. And we can monitor that from home. In other words, that can be done from home. And there are other diseases that fit the same category of having, you know, a chronic condition and become sick from something else. And actually, you know, just as well, you could be hospitalized in their own home and monitored from there, provided, of course, that the important blood values can be obtained. From the studies that we at Qlife participate, we estimate in the long run that up to around 20% of all hospital beds can be freed up under such a model. Of course, in the long term, we have to start out slow, but freeing up 20% of hospital beds in the long run would be extremely significant. It would transition into very large public healthcare savings. Now, from Qlife point of view, we are focused on 3 geographical markets where we are entering partnerships, and especially one of these markets has tremendous potential. The 3 markets is China, UK, and Denmark, because we are based here. And the market I would like to go a little deeper into, or the relationship that we have there, I would like to go a little deeper into, is the Chinese market. As Klaus mentioned, we have recently entered an agreement, a partnership with a company called Hipro, which is a significant player in the Chinese point of care market, and who has, and I was really happy to learn that, the exact same vision of bringing their platform into the homes of people through this hospital at home under this model. So we have the exact same vision. And as I said, it was really nice to find that out. And on that basis, we have together found out to strike an agreement. And I'm again very happy that that agreement was entered just a few days ago. So the agreement with Hipro consists of 4 major parts. First of all, integration of reagents. So the way Qlife is working with our EcoHealth platform is that we are sourcing our chemicals from whatever available commercial reagents we can find out there, the best ones, of course. We don't manufacture or develop them ourselves. We purchase them and then we implement on EcoHealth. The interesting thing here is that Hipro has all these reagents. And more importantly, the assay structure is such that they can be directly implemented on the platform, which is really, really nice. You know, we have, over the past few years, we are working on 2, 3, 4 assays. Hipro has a catalog of around 35 assays, which can be directly entered and integrated on the EcoHealth platform. So we can relatively quickly have a much broader menu. Then another really important thing under this agreement is that Hipro will take care of all regulatory approvals in China with the Chinese FDA. And that alone, as I mentioned in the beginning, is something that we at Qlife have learned is very, very hard. We are probably, a too small company today to really be able to do that. And hence, it means a lot that they will carry the cost related to getting these approvals for the Chinese market. But there's also another interesting point, which is that in China, you can actually use the same protocols to CE mark from China. Hipro is working with TÜV, the German really very large notified body in Europe. And hence, we should be able to bring CE mark products to Europe from that process in China. As you all probably remember, I was always a little bit surprised that the Chinese under the pandemic could bring CE marked antigen tests to Europe so fast. And that has a lot to do with that. The third point, of course, the big one and important one related to revenues in the future is that Hipro, of course, will take care of all distribution and sales in China with the EcoHealth platform. They are already selling their platform to around 14,000 Chinese hospitals. And they will do the same with EcoHealth and transition from point of care into home hospital with our platform. And sales are expected to be significant from those activities. And finally, they will take care of production of our platform. That obviously also is a very important point because I think essentially that we are saving maybe up to 10 years in terms of cost down efforts because the quotes that we have received from Hipro on the cost of producing the platform is amazingly low, which is really, really nice. So not only will they be able to produce products for their own Chinese supply, but we will be able to purchase our platform from China for sales into other markets. So those are the 4 major points. And the value of the partnerships is expected to be the 4 points that I mentioned here. I have also included a picture that was recently, I think it was taken 4 or 5 days ago in China, where the agreement is celebrated. So the 4 points is that during the next 12 to 18 months, Hipro will certify 3 eco tests. The first one will be our CRP infection level tests, which is obviously always very important for home monitoring. And then probably 2 more in the cardiac field to begin with. The idea is to continue from there and really work towards a much broader menu. But 3 tests under the agreement within the next 12 to 18 months. Hipro is forecasting that the unit sales of Ego platform will correspond to around 10 to 20% of Hipro current unit sale, which is 25 million units per year. So between 2.5 to 5 million units of Ego capsules. And that corresponds, point number 3, to sales in the range of 100 to 200 million SEK in the first year. Ratio here would be 80% capsules and 20% devices. Pretty significant, I would say, for a first year on the market in a foreign country. But I just have to say that the Chinese market, now that we have learned to understand it really well, I think everybody knows how, it's tremendously big, and the potential is really, really big. And we see that as sales efforts will continue, we are estimating that conservatively over a 5-year period in year 5, revenue should be equivalent to what would be worth 300 to 500 million SEK. The milestones under the agreements and the timing of the milestones I've listed here. We will start to work together from January 24. We are basically already working together. Our technical team was just coming back here Saturday. The past week they were over there. The efforts have started. But officially we start in January 24. First, of course, focusing on CRP, analytical and clinical protocols. In March starts number 2 test, and in May start number 3 test. Hopefully we can do it faster than that, but currently that's the official schedule. Then June next year, submission of the CRP test to China FDA. In August, number 2 submission, and in October, number 3 submission. And then expected that we will get those approvals. It goes a bit quicker in China with the approvals, as far as we understand, and from what Hipro is telling us. So we could expect to have the first test CRP approved between October, December next year, the second one between December, February, and the third one between February and April. So currently that's the timeline, and that means we should be able end of next year to bring, or Hipro should be able end of next year to bring CRP test to the Chinese market and start to generate revenue. Now, finally, just a few words on our structure forward. I listed here a few points, which is really major part of our strategy plan. First of all, Qlife today is a company which is reduced down to 12 people, which I think is really, really good. That means we have our cost under control. Under COVID, we were up to 75 people, but obviously after COVID, it has been a little bit different environment, both from a business perspective, but also from a financial perspective. And today, to have our cost under control and being able to scale up again from here is obviously really, really important. And basically, we will focus on making Hipro successful in the Chinese market. That's going to be the really big focus. But also expansion to other big markets. We are already in discussion with various types of partners in the big markets. And of course, we would be happy to sign more partnership agreements similar to the Hipro one. Key actions forward will be that we will spend probably around 40% of our people will be on the Hipro agreement, 25% on regulatory. We will spend around 15% on business development to enter new partnership. And of course, all the requirements to be a listed company and general administrative, around 20% of our people is occupied with. So very quick to recap, we think Qlife is a company, we've gone through a period where we learned a lot from the pandemic. The platform has matured and is very robust today. We see a really big market potential from the hospital at home, and eventually, maybe in 5-10 years' time, we will transition into the consumer markets. But being in the professional hospital at home market is a place where we see a lot of potential. We have already proven the scalability of the platform. we see that what the public healthcare models that we play into, we could be a significant player in that. And eventually that means that, for the benefit of society, it means better treatment outcomes for people. And overall, we see that, more and more people have a new mindset. They understand the importance of what it means to monitor biomarkers at the clinical grade level. So the last graph I have included here, I think is a little bit interesting. Ironically, in March of 21, at the height of the pandemic, I would say that we were still a very young company. We had high potential, but there was also high risk associated with Qlife. Our market cap was around 600 million SEK. Today, November, December 23, I still think we have higher potential than ever, but the platform is mature. So I would say that the risk associated with the company and the platform is really moderate to quite low, actually. But we see that our market cap is quite low, and of course, it's our job to work from here and make sure that market cap is going to increase. That was all for me. Thank you for listening.
Thanks a lot, Thomas, for a thoroughly presentation of your strategies, the market, and of course the recently signed agreement. And then there's a lot of questions about the agreement. If we should just start top down, Thomas, one thing you mentioned that you're in negotiation with other partners for other markets. Hybrid, they have exclusivity for the Chinese market and only the Chinese market. Is that right understood?
Yes, that's correct. They are exclusive in China. And we think that's the right way to do it, because Hybrid should be allowed to, run with the ball, so to speak. There's a lot of benefits associated with them doing all the things I was talking about. And of course, we will get our share of that, and then we will focus on other markets and get the products from China. And
how much technology transfer do you do to Hybrid, and what do you keep yourself? Because you're a smaller company, and even though Hybrid is a mid-sized company, they're still way bigger than you are. Could you elaborate a little on that?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I obviously understand all the concerns that you have when you are dealing with China. We all know how good they are to copying stuff. We are basically trying to control that by giving them, initially we are having them focused on the consumables, which are, the ones that we are in most need of having produced there in order to reach volumes, and which are, let's say, less sensitive in terms of being copied. Sorry. And then in the longer run, we will probably transfer the device production. The device is a very, very complex device, and some of the parts in there requires very specific knowledge. So those parts will maybe never be transferred, or eventually maybe they will be transferred in different modules. So we are really trying to control that by, having a structured plan for transferring the various components.
So are they going to? So they already have a device for testing capsules. They don't have the blood plasma device. That's quite unique to you. Are they going to carry out both their own product and your product in the market with the different assays?
Yeah, absolutely. Their own product, which they are selling a lot of, and they are a big player in the point of care market. So in the hospital, they are totally focused on that. But as any other point of care company in the world, they are also pressured because there are lots of different systems that works in the point of care. But there's no system, as I mentioned, which is approved for home monitoring. So they obviously, they will. You could say that our product platform will be an extension of what they have, an extension into the home, and they will be alone to be able to do that.
So those sales numbers you mentioned in the presentation, Thomas, are they numbers from the hospital segment or for the consumer segment?
Those are numbers from the hospital segment, but in the home hospital market. So a market that doesn't exist today, and those numbers are their forecast for the first year that they start selling this to hospitals, but again, for the home hospital market.
We know that Chinese people in general are very technology adaptive. Do you know already now, or can you elaborate a little for the participants, how they're going to sell the at-home testing kit?
Yes, I mean, they are selling it to the hospitals. So this is as basically similar to what it would be here in Denmark or in Sweden or in the UK. The big public hospitals and private hospitals are very interested in keeping their patients in the home. So the actual contract is done, with the hospital or whoever finances the hospitals. So that's a fairly normal contract. And then, of course, the product will be used in the homes, but it's not the personal patient or a consumer who's paying for it. It is still the public.
Okay, very interesting. Mm-hmm. Then, if we look into the test schedule, and you mentioned that in your presentation, that you have 3 tests that you're going to do. The first one will be the CPR. You already have that one. And then they're going to test 2 others more related to cardiovascular diseases. You have earlier mentioned vitamin D and HbA1c. Are you going to put those tests on hold, Thomas, and only run a timeline with Hybro, or can you elaborate a little on that?
Yeah, no, we are, as a matter of fact, we are still launching, especially vitamin D, because we are focused in parallel with this also in the UK market, especially in the health practitioner market, where there's a big wish to access vitamin D. We are not going to approve vitamin D in the short term, but we can sell it there as an RUO product. And as I said, the demand seems to be quite significant. So we want to test that. And on top of that, Hybro also really would like vitamin D and especially HbA1c, which obviously, the 3 months average glucose, which is very, very important. So they also agree with us that those 2 are important ones. They probably, before they start on those, it's very likely that they would put 2 of the important cardiac biomarkers on the platform, because that really matters in relation to keeping patients in their home, that you can monitor heart. You probably also want to monitor kidney and liver. So potentially, those biomarkers related to those 2 organs. But eventually they will have these also. We, of course, will prefer that for the actual regulatory approvals, that should go on in China, because it's much, much faster to do it that way. They have the resources to speed it up. And then eventually we can, take it back and bring it into Europe.
Yeah, and would you take a CE marking after you applied for the FDA approval, or would you do that parallel? And should we expect you to bring any CE mark products from the Hybro collaboration to Europe in 2024?
Probably not from Hybro, but we are still we are already in process with our CRP test, as the CE marking procedures. So we do expect to be able to send that into the authorities in Q2 next year. The problem is that once you send that in, you basically today don't know when the approval will come from the notified body or from the authorities. So that approval could come 1 month later. But rumor says that it will take up to a year, before they actually have time to basically approve it, which I think is very critical. I think that's really not okay. But nevertheless, that's the situation today. So it's likely actually that Hybro will be able to CE mark before we actually are capable of doing it ourselves. But I basically don't know how fast we will get the approval in Europe by ourselves.
And the study you referred to there is the one you do with the hospital in Denmark?
Yes.
Yes, good.
That's right, North Zealand Hospital.
Yes, yeah. Well, when we get that approval, is it easy then because that's more the technology and the product. It's not so much the assay.
Well, it is actually the assay clause, because it's true, the actual Eco Health device is already CE marked, but each capsule needs to be CE marked by themselves.
Okay, yes.
So there's a lot of, I can say that for each assay you need to run around 15,000 capsules under various protocols and clinical trials in order to get that CE mark.
Yeah, that's quite a lot.
It's quite a lot, actually.
Yeah, you have to say so. Good, Thomas. Then in terms of, let's just finish the Hybro deal. Then in terms of payment, Thomas, you of course get a lot of work done in China that you can piggyback on in other markets. That's clear for everybody. Do you receive any kind of upfront milestones? And could you also elaborate a little on what should we look into in terms of potential royalties coming from the big sales amounts that you mentioned in your presentation?
Yeah, I mean, we do not get the upfront payments from this agreement. That would of course have been nice, but I think Hybro is still looking at this as being something new, and they feel that they are already going to invest quite a lot in setting it up in China. There's a lot of cost associated with that, and of course also to set up the production, etc., etc. So you can say there's a lot of indirect financing, because this is something that would be really hard for ourselves to finance here in Europe. In terms of revenues, we are secured a minimum royalty of 20% from sales. So, and if the profit margin is higher than 40%, we get half 20. If it's higher than that, for instance, if the gross margin would be 50%, then we would get 25%. So we are secured a royalty of minimum 20%.
Very interesting, Thomas. Well, if we should then jump a little to UK and Ireland, I know you've been using a lot of time on those markets, and you also in your presentation mentioned your collaboration partner there. Are you going to carry out any test to get CE approval in those markets, and do you see benefits to work in different markets for CE marking? You mentioned, or are the time frame more or less the same whether it's UK, Ireland, or Denmark?
Yeah, so besides our CRP test, as I mentioned before, which we are CE marking as far as possible, once that's approved, we would register it in the UK also. Of course, that's a registration process because of Brexit, but that's really a formality on top of the CE mark. But besides that, no, we will sell especially vitamin D, and if any others comes along, we will sell them as RUO, research use only products in UK, which we can do as long as we don't claim anything related to diseases, and that works for us right now. But of course, in the long term, we want to do the exact same in the UK. We're already working with NHS through a very big distributor over there, and they have the exact same wish to bring this platform into home hospital, especially in the UK, where the healthcare system is very, very pressured. So it's actually we're actually receiving a lot of interest on this, but regulatory is a big deal, and without that, it cannot be used in that professional market in the UK. So eventually we see that the Chinese CE marking will allow us also to sell products to the public in the UK and then again in other markets.
Thanks a lot, Thomas. And if we should finish after today's event, could you elaborate a little on the financial situation, Thomas? Because all of us know that, well, sometimes next year you're going to find a solution bridging that. But what are your thoughts about liquidity for the moment?
Yeah, I think, so far we are okay, but of course we are working to achieve more financing for the company. We need somehow to finance 24, and we have different initiatives ongoing for that, which looks good. And I think, that's probably all I can say about that right now.
That's fair, Thomas. That's fair. So I don't know if there's any more questions from the audience. I think we've been around more or less all the questions, but if not, please raise your hand or post your question again, and then I will forward it to Thomas. Well, that's a silent approval of that, Thomas. So by that said, I would like, first of all, Thomas, thanks a lot for all the good input, and again, congratulations with the fine agreement. And to the audience, thanks a lot for all the good questions. And as I mentioned in the beginning, this is a recorded interview, so you will find this interview later today or tomorrow on our homepage, and of course on Qlife's homepage as well. So with that said, I hope you get a very nice Monday, and thanks a lot for participating.
Thank you, Claus.